Hey Jim, DJ. Just quickly, gonna see if I can test this. Okay, this is an old. Wow, it feels weird to actually be holding one of these things again. Very weird. Obviously, not quite the same as what I used to have. I used to have a JR2610, which was a very nice transmitter. It was a 36 megahertz unit. These are all 2.4 gig units nowadays. But I very much do miss holding the old RC transmitters. It's just a shame you can't really get them the quality of like the JR2610s anymore. Anyway, the problem with this is apparently the receiver is not activating, so I'm just going to check that before I get into the other jobs for the day, or the night rather. So, okay, we need to... And that didn't switch. What's going on there? Ooh, I know why. I unfortunately deleted a scene. Now I've got to reset it. Switch to scene. Hopefully this will work. Yes. Apply. Okay. Yeah, just better switch back. Yep. Switch in. Yep. Okay, cool. Alright. Not a good thing to accidentally delete your scenes. It creates a bit of a scene. Yeah, Travis, I saw your comment. I was already on the way to coming down to the workshop to have a look. And Nick, Mike, there's not much to these things anymore. They're certainly a far cry from the VHF systems. I would say that it is a definite improvement that we have now got. Yeah, it's much better to have this sort of all-in-one integrated setup. Barry, that's a story in itself. Okay, so they're not getting any power. A bit of corrosion here and there. So we may have a regulator issue or something. These things can be a little bit tricky. Well, I guess what we'll do is we'll check to see if there's a regulator output. Good old tantrum cap there. But they're nice and simple. I mean, this is, that's everything. 2.4 gigahertz receiver and all. Just amazing. Yeah, if I had to blame something, okay, there's some corrosion, but these are all signal output lines, so that's not really going to be the issue. It has been sheared off to the side a little bit, you can see how, but that may actually rather just be the way it was soldered at the time of manufacture. Let's see, is that resistor a bit wonky? Looks like some tin hair growth coming out there, I could be wrong. Yeah, it's probably just, nah, who knows. Now, if you're wondering about my title of today, well, that's because I had an iPhone 7 come in today. And it had a badly smashed up screen, no drama, used to that. But then it had, so we're a short on there? No. And I quoted the person 130 for the job. And they said, oh, well, I've got 120 here. I said, yeah, well, you're going to need 130, so you only, when you got the 130, come back and pick it up and it'll be repaired. No worries. And so I'm fixing this thing up and I realised it's got a torn camera front flex cable. So I thought, alright, fine, well, I've got plenty of those around, so I'll just fix that up. So I replace it and no problem. And the customer comes back and I said, there you go. So, I even replaced the flex for you, no charge, because I already had just one line around. That'll be 130, please. And so they hand me this bundle of cash. And I said, I'm going to count this, because it's a whole bunch of notes. And I flipped them through, and it turns out it's 120. So the person didn't even go back and get the extra $10. And I thought, God damn it. I said, I can't give you the phone. You have to come back and give me the full 130. Otherwise, you can't have the phone. So I take the phone, put it back onto the dock for charging and stuff like that. And about half an hour later, the screen starts glitching on it. It's like, twitch, twitch, twitch. I thought, you got to be kidding me. So I then go along and I replace the screen for the second time, and it happens. You get dud screens. And so it all seems to be good again. And finally, they turn up way after my opening hours. But I thought, stuff it, I want to get this job out of the way. I open everything up, and they give me about $100 cash, and they want to put the rest on the card. And I was, yeah, no problem, I can do that. And then the card doesn't work, and we try 3 times, and it comes up and it says, phone the bank to sort this out. And I'm like, oh, flip's sake. And in the end, after much angst, I suppose, not really, I wasn't really getting too angry, I was just more getting exasperated. I finally come up with 125, and it was like, that's it. I said, I'll take the 125, just get out of here. And it's just like, every single time you think you're trying to be nice and do something as a favour, just to be helpful, just to be a good person and make someone else's day better, it always blows up in your face. So, So I'm kind of sick of it, but it's just frustrating. And $10 isn't a lot of money, which means it's not a lot of money. It's like, if it's not a lot of money to me, then it can't be a lot of money to them, so to speak. Like, if we're going to play that it's not a lot of money, then it's got to apply both ways. It's just more frustrating the fact that they tried to actually flog it off to me as if it was 130 without saying anything and hoping that I didn't count the money. So what a load of crap was that? But just another reminder not to go out there thinking, I'm going to be useful to the human society today and do something nice. It's like it will always blow up in your face. Yeah, well, I mean, I agree. Yeah, I agree. If they're going to haggle over the $10, then it wouldn't have. I would have just said, "Nah, look, don't worry about it." But the fact that he said, "Yeah, look, I'll just go get the extra $10," I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I went ahead with it. But yeah, humans can be major arsewips. I think you mean are, not can be, are. Okay, so just double check. What have we got here? Signal back bend. Interestingly, he's mentioned channel 3 was popular for. It's kind of funny that they put the signal, the indications here, like, signal plus minus, which has absolutely no correlation whatsoever to the vertical version of it. So it's like, yep, that really helps, buddies. But I'm going to guess that they mean is that the S there is referring to the top there, closest to the keyways. And that makes sense because these are all the signal lines, these are the power lines. Alright, so we stick that there. Yep, positive middle. And I'm going to hook this up to 5 volts on the power supply and see what happens. Yeah, Barry, I just took it as a combination of, well, Paul, you've been reminded of your lesson. Here's another five. I got $5 out of it, and they got $5 discount. Needs to say, I know the entire family that they are part of. So if I see that phone come along again, it will get a special quote the next time to compensate. I better not talk too much and make sure I get my 5 volts here. It'd really suck if I put 18 volts through this. Okay, 5 volts. We do not need 2 amps. Mike, this is just a 9-channel receiver, I think. I know. Yeah, kind of 9. They play silly buggers with the definition of what channels are. Okay, so we don't have any indications, which is not necessarily a problem, but we do need to now measure our voltage and see what we're getting. So we should get 3.3 or something like that, as far as I remember. Okay, let's first test the input. Oh, okay, that's the output. So we've got 3.3 on the output and 5 on the input. That's bad news. It's bad news because basically, aside from that, what the hell is there to go wrong? Not a lot. Switcher. Great. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, we've magically reactivated. I can see the LED on there. So we've done nothing and it's come back to life, so that's a bad sign. It's in reverse. What? Oh, it's backing up. Oh, I get you now. So what is this? Not sure what to think about that. I would then probably say that maybe they've got a problem with their power brick. Because let me check the. Where's the note? Maybe a chip reflow would help. It does look pretty nasty there. Let's see. Can you not get the receiver to light up when the battery is connected? There is power on both sides of the positive and negative rails, but it doesn't appear to be going into the receiver. So I'm guessing that he's been measuring on the actual pins. And yeah, I'd say probably a reflow is actually the option. We'll just go along and we'll clean up all the pins. Give it a bit of a lick of paint, a bit of a service. Really gonna have to double check my hot air settings on this, because this is what a 2-sided circuit board. I am actually still amazed at how little there is to it. I'm not quite sure. This is L24CO. Okay, that'll be a EEPROM type chip, probably to just store the settings. This here will be just that's probably just simply a what do you call it? Serial parallel converter. So the way they work is that they just clock the pulses out sequentially. There aren't any parallel pulses going out to the servos. It's because your servo window is typically a 1 to 2 millisecond square wave within a 15 to 20 millisecond frame. Now you can sort of compromise on those figures a little bit. You may sort of want to get a higher frame rate by having less channels in a shorter servo frame, or you may want more channels and simply have a lot of them but in a slightly longer frame and henceforth a lower update rate. But it's strange, I actually thought these ran at a higher frequency rate these days, with the new receivers, but this one's probably just a classic 50 Hz clock out type thing. So anyway, do you still recommend the benchtop meter? Travis, do I have the GW Instech one on there? I can't remember. Oh great, we've got bugs around here. I'm kind of trying to decide what to attack here. I mean, that looks pretty secure there. I'd be more worried about these two caps are a bit of a concern. They seem to be a little bit corroded. I've got no idea what their values will be. Voltage I can guess. Yeah, the two decoupling caps up here are a bit of a problem. And they are, well, certainly this one. I'm not sure what that one's for, but since it's going to ground and there, it's probably like auxiliary. They're all pretty yucky. So that's input. So we've got a 22 microfarad input, we've got a 4.7 output. Both of them are tantrums. I know they're tantalum, but I call them tantrums. The antenna input is, I don't want to mess with that too much because these things are they get pretty ticked off if you mess with them too much. I would be most inclined to try and replace these, but I've got to work out their values, and hopefully there's no charge pump going on, being high voltage and stuff like that. Oh, the VC8145. Is that what I got up there? Yeah, it's certainly not the worst meter. I'm actually thinking of getting the VC8145-2, as in Roman numeral 2, and trying it out. I still think it's a good meter, but it does need some software mods to really make it better. Hey Nell. Yeah, if I lift the pad and measure, then at least I can get the capacitance. I'd say they're probably either 100 nanofarad or 1 microfarad. Okay, Rodrigo, good luck with the dentist. Hopefully all goes well. I'm going to go with 390 temperature and 40 air on this. I really do not want the antenna cable coming loose. Given how much they charge for these things, it's quite a profitable market for them. Okay. No. Hey Andre. Alright, let's see if we got any hope of getting capacitance out of this one. Alright, so it's registering 1.7, so this is probably a 2.2 microfarad. And what is that? This is 603, I'd say. 603 or 80. Yeah, so we're looking at a 2.2 microfarad for that one. And we could always go about 10 volts on it if we want. Fortunately, the other pads the other stuff is ground, so, and we're destroying the cap anyway. Oh, right. Thanks for reminding me. Much appreciated. Overhead. Let's see. Copy. Thanks for letting me know. Hey, Just Give. Let's see what this one is. So the first one was 2.2. Let's see what you are. I'd say this is probably also a 2.2. Yeah, even though it's 1.6, you really only get 1 microfarad, 2.2 microfarad. So, yeah, we'll call this a 2. Yeah, it depends on where I'm sticking the probe. So, okay, so I've got a pair of 2.2s. That's no good. It's just unfortunate you can't test what the voltage rating of those caps are unless, at least not just without being destructive. And even when you are being destructive, it's still not a sure thing. Geez, I've got a bunch of 1s, 10s. I don't really want to put 2 sequentially. Let's see, 680. I might have to nick some from an iPhone or something like that. Oh, here we go. 2.2, 10 volt. Knew I had to have them somewhere. I've probably been in there for the last 15 years. What do you think about the Amtech 559 flux? I've got no problem with it. Yeah, I'm sure there are fluxes that are perhaps better suited to what I'm doing, but I don't have any dramas with this stuff. I'm happy with it. The main complaint will be that occasionally, yeah, it does sort of vanish a little quicker than you want. But on the other hand, it probably has other properties that you do want. See you, DJ. At least the nice thing is we do have options, so by the way, I am just guessing that these are 603s, but they do look like 603s to me. And the winner says, yes it is a 603. Okay, we're just going to stick you up here and do one at a time. I probably could have just manually soldered these on, but I'm getting a little bit too much into the habit of using hot air for everything. I really haven't tried different types of flux. As I don't have a compelling reason to change at this point, and I don't have the time to spend stuffing around trying to pick something. Ah, for goodness sake. Like, if there was a problem with the flux that I was using, then yeah, at that point I will then go around and go, alright, well, what are my options? But there's not enough time for me to even barely scratch my butt during the day, so I'm really not going to be spending it experimenting with fluxes. Hey Teresa, how you going? Alright. Now, of course, the other possibility is that resistor could be dud. Unlikely, but we did have lots of little spikes coming out of it. No, it's probably going to be about a 1K resistor, I'd guess. And I'm going to replace it simply because it looks gnarly. Mike, I mostly use a 9mm tip. 9mm straight tip does the job for me. I even use it on iPhones. Occasionally I'll switch down to a 6mm on an iPhone if I really am getting picky, like around the corner of the CPU or something like that. Like last night I had to do that. Last night was fun because I had an iPhone XR come in that had been drowned in the local river. And for some stupid reason, my brain told me that I was working on an iPhone 8. Now on the iPhone 8 you can get the shields off without too much trouble. iPhone XR on the other hand is a complete pain in the backside. Yeah, 1K resistor. And anyway, so I was pottering along trying to get the shields off the XR and just not really being sufficiently mindful of what I was doing, and I cooked it a little bit too much, and I had started getting some delicious solder balls getting squeezed out in places that shouldn't be, and that kind of ruined my night a little bit. The good news is I did get the data off, so no, everything's all good and fine. It was just more a case of that was pretty stupid. It's just, silly mistakes like that. I got lucky this time, thank goodness. Alright, I'm just going through my pile of stuff. Okay, these are my little trays that I set up for when I was manufacturing, and I would be doing pick and place manually. I'd have like the suction tool back and forth, and I'd have all these trays, and these trays would be organized based on what job I was working on. So like I would have it so that all the components I need, or at least a majority of them for a particular job, were in one combination. And so I've still got these all in my boxes. It's just crazy to think how old they are now. Hey, Jan Zimmy. Oh, and I found someone who is pirating my software, Flexboard View, or pirating the licenses. I sent them a message to see if they're going to respond to me. It's going to be funny if they do. I think that resistor was actually a 402 size, but that's no problem. I really want to touch these up, but like I said, I don't want to change them because their capacitors are fairly unknown values, and of course one of them is the RF input stage, and you really don't want to stuff around with that. If you're into black magic, that's fine, but I'm not, so I don't touch RF input stages. Yeah, Tony, it was the first one I picked up was some phone repair store in Barcelona. So the idiots were stupid enough, or at least I think it was them, they were stupid enough to use their store name as their forum alias on a cracker hacker site. And so I just followed the dots and sent them a message and see how they respond. It's like if you're gonna go onto a crack site looking for cracks, then it's a good idea to not use your store name. Maybe they just don't give a crap. I mean, to be fair, what am I gonna do? Yeah, nothing. There's nothing I can do. Mike, no, they cannot. Yeah, you have to have a valid license to be able to access or add to that database. I mean, at the moment, I haven't got that door locked, but before it goes into full production, it will be. So I know which licenses are legitimate and which ones aren't when they make contact, because they fail the challenge test. But I still let them through for now. Sometimes you just gotta let people get hooked. Tell you what, it's a real pleasure working on colossally sized parts like this. So for people wondering, we're just touching up this board. There seems to be some sort of intermittent issues, so we're just going around and trying to make it that, we can't really prove that we fixed anything other than it works. But it's not to say it won't be intermittent. I mean, I get it that people, some people just can't quite afford it, though I do wonder why, considering that most of their equipment's going to be costing them a little more than my software. Particularly when they're a store that touts to have done many thousands of phones and computers, and it's like, yeah, cheap bastards. Like I said, piracy is not something that keeps me awake at night. It's an inevitable consequence of having software, but it is always fun to periodically drop in and say hello to the people doing this sort of thing. It's like, hello, I know what you're doing. Yes, carry on. Just, yeah. And they're like, what? No, we ain't doing that. And it's like, yeah, you are. It's pretty obvious what you're doing. You're not some genius crackers or anything. You're just same as anyone else I know. Yeah, Arnold, it's heading towards that kind of thing, but I've got to try and at least keep it a reasonable situation. I don't want to lock people out simply because their internet connection is down and stuff like that. Hey, Richard Moore, good day to you. Caps can be intermittent, but it's probably not what's going on here. Yeah, exactly. I'll tell people, like I get the people saying, "Oh, please, sir, I want your software, but I cannot afford it," and stuff like that. And I'm like, "Oh, look, I understand. That's why I put a year and a half, 2 years worth of work into Open Board View. So there you go. It's free. You don't even have to pay me anything. You can contribute to it. Do what you like. It's free. No, 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 no. We want the extra features of Flexboard View. And I'm like, well, if you want the extra features, then you can pay for them, because I put the extra work into those. And if you are a commercial repair shop, then you should damn well be able to afford that. It's the audacity and the expectation that they're going to get the professional product because they're too lazy, or they're experiencing why you have a professional product, but they don't want to have to pay for it. I get it. Everybody's like that. We all like to get the best we can for free, but no. It's that simple. No. Get the free version. Damaris, how you going there? I haven't seen you a bit lately. You've been... Well, we straight away get a LED, so we haven't destroyed it. Unfortunately, I don't think I've got any servos handy. I basically... Before I switched back to doing computers and electronics and all that as my job again, back when model aircraft was actually my job, I was running a store, I was designing the electronics, I was designing planes and things like that. Some of those designs are actually still out there. You can buy them as laser kits sort of thing, likewise with the electronics. But damn it, lost my train of thought. Oh yes, anyway, so eventually I realized, look, it's just not happening. China is allowing direct purchases. The market just isn't viable anymore. I have to get out and move to something back to IT sort of thing. And I had to just sell everything. I mean, anything I could find around the house to sell, I had to sell to make sure we had money. We basically, there were a couple of days there where I think I went to the shop with about $2.63, and I had to try and make a meal out of that and feed the animals. They were difficult days, and so I can sympathize a lot with people who find it very hard to make ends meet, and particularly if they've got to do that on a very persistent basis. It was bad enough for me over the course of a year to deal with it before things started to pick back up again. But it's I wouldn't say that people should go through a scenario like that, but it certainly does give you a sense of appreciating even small amounts of money consistently to be able to buy food. So we're even going to sell our wedding rings. The only reason why I didn't end up doing that was because the value in terms of the metallurgical value, like platinum or whatever, it was just not worth it. It was like maybe $100, and that would be gone. So so they were not good days. That was a long time ago now, but it's certainly something that I still remember quite often. Yeah, Mike, sometimes you just like to go off the field like that, and that's what I did. I was doing a lot of programming in the early 2000s. I had a big software product, but the pressure just got to me too much, because like I was dealing with customers that had like 1 million clients and things like that, and if there was an issue with the software, I'd get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd have to straight away get up, start working the problem, and hopefully have a solution within less than 24 hours. And that, along with the fact that I was newly married, it just wasn't a good combination, because the sort of person and the availability you have to be able to provide in order to support that kind of software environment, development environment, that job, is usually not very conducive towards a good marriage, because you effectively have to either commit, you have to be able to do those things, 3 o'clock in the morning, spend the next 24 hours running amok coding and ignoring your partner. So I just sort of I closed it down, gave it up, and I switched over to the model aircraft things and all that. And for me, it was because I was turning a hobby into a business. Not a good idea, but everybody learns that experience. But yeah, that didn't really work out long term because once China opened up its doors for direct buying, then it was the end of the game for all the domestic sellers. Barry West, let's see, I have a question regarding a plug-in mic to use in streaming on an iPhone 12 Pro. Oh, okay, I don't know anything about those ones, sorry, yeah. Thomas, yeah, I was lucky that because I already have my experience in IT, doing anything from software to network to just PC Windows servicing and all of that. I was lucky that it was something that I could immediately advertise to the local community, and I immediately started getting jobs. And I remember the first job and getting that $50. That was what I got for it, and it was such a relief to know that I was coming home, that we'd actually have a meal, and then the next $100 after that was also really good because I could finally buy some shoes. Because up until that point, my shoes were falling apart. I had whopping great big holes in it, and I went out of my way to hide my feet whenever I was near a customer because they would see the whopping great big holes in my shoes. And you just didn't want to portray that sort of image that, oh yeah, this guy's pretty much a hobo, and what are you going to do giving him money for? But within a couple of weeks, things were speeding up again, and then of course there was all the fun of dealing with all the the debts, which was at that point it was close to about 100,000 debt, of which around about, actually no, that's not true. I think it was about 70,000 debt, of which 80-90% of it was credit card debt, and that was sitting on about a 10 to 20% interest rate. And I think it took about 7 years to get that under control and eliminate most of it, and then, which was only about 2 or 3 years ago. And then we straight away went into, I had to deal with my tax, which was another 20 odd thousand. And then after that, save for the house, and we've got the house. So yeah, it's been a very long slog, and I'll be happy to be able to take a break at some point and just simply relax a little bit. Alright, okay, anyway. Yeah, duct tape works well on the shoes, yeah, I agree. That seems to be fine. I'll give that a wash down. I'm disinclined to put it through the ultrasonic just in case I upset something with the RF components. It shouldn't, because the crystal will be sealed and everything else, but I don't want to take the risk. What I will do though is give it a brush down. Hey Michael, you have a small Elgato HD capture card. Oh, I know those ones. Hang on. Okay, electrical. The reason why I didn't end up going to the op shops and whatnot is, well, half the time you don't even think about it. And the other thing is, I was thinking, right, I can just get through this, just pick up a couple of jobs, and I'll be able to get myself a good new set. So the flux has gone cold. Michael, what you can do, okay, and this applies to anyone who wants to make a board view of something. The best thing you can do is build the board and the schematic in a proper EDA program, say like, well, I said proper EDA, but anyway, Eagle CAD or KiCad, or one of those actual programs designed for electronic board design and schematics. Once you've got it in as a board design schematic, doesn't matter if you haven't actually done the routing or anything, so long as the connections are there, then you can export that as GenCAD, hyperlinks, IDs, IPC 365, or whatever it is, one of those formats, and then you'll be able to read that into Flexboard View and OpenBoard View, and that's it. You've got your board view and your schematic then. It's that simple. But the key is you first have to construct it in a program like KiCad or Eagle and stuff like that. Unjustified Rex, yes, that is actually an important point. You get family or mates who think, "Oh, you're my family, you're my mate. You should give it to me cheaper." And it's really, I think, the opposing point actually is more relevant in that your family, you want to use my services, you're going to have a natural advantage just simply the fact that I know you and you can converse with me outside of the normal procedures. So you actually should pay me at least my normal rate, if not more. But we know it never works that way, as much as we feel it should. Tinkercad. Never tried Tinkercad. Didn't even know about it until you just mentioned it. But yeah, KiCad and Eagle are probably pretty good going, particularly if it's just a two-sided board. That's the other thing. You don't even need to do all the layers. Like I said, so long as you have the parts with the name correlating to the schematic, and the networks again correlating to the schematic, and the connections, as long as you make those interconnects, then you're good. Obviously, if you build the schematic, then that's going to happen naturally. Charge slightly less for cash. I'm going to, given that you're JK Electrical, I'm going to presume then that's technically off the books. Alright, well, all I can do with this one at this point is, reassemble it, give it back to the person, and see how it goes. Geez, they don't have a rubber grommet there for the antenna. They're just using a crimp. Like the plastic chassis is crimping it. It's not really what I recommend, because you do ultimately pinch through that cable. Better to have some sort of rubber grommet around it. Oh well. Easy EDA, well, whatever's out there, whatever you got access to, OrCAD, if you're lucky, Allegro. It's legal to be paid in cash though. It is, yeah. I guess the case is, are you declaring it or not? Alright, I'll put this thing back. I'll message the person tomorrow and they can come and collect it, and hopefully it works for them. As opposed to doing what so many jobs do, which is they work for me, gets to the customer, it stops working. Alright, next job, we have got a beer infused A1398, I think. Yep, beer infused A1398. Ah, crud. Oh, good thing I've got the detail. No, that's the one time that the details didn't get obscured. God damn it. Oh well. TurboCAD. Wow, that is... I haven't seen TurboCAD in a long time. I used to have a license of TurboCAD back in the DOS days. I did quite like it, actually. Now apparently, let's see, user woke up, laptop sitting in a small puddle of beer. After drying, turn it on, boots to a certain point, then crashes. Not a guarantee that it actually is a beer related issue. It could be, depending on the year, U8900, or it could be VRMs. Okay, we're just going to switch over to the face view because there's a sticker underneath that reveals a little bit too much. Fortunately, the smell is not showing up yet in my nostrils, but I imagine once I start heating up the board, it may well. Do you obtain Eagle from Autodesk? Yes. You can get their, well, I guess if you get their latest version, it's going to be free anyway, for the small ones, for smaller boards, which your capture card should actually fit in. I still have version 7.7, I think it is, which was the very last version that you were able to buy as a permanent license. After that, they switched over to the Autodesk subscription system, which I decided I did not want to partake with. Okay, overhead. Battery off. This has had a battery replacement. That's not original. It's this is a 3780. This is like the one that we had the other day. We do have a fair build up of junk. This I'm just gonna strip it right out. I'm sincerely hoping that it is a case of it was just a pool of beer that got under it. So it seems like it's the week of the 3787s. By the way, that 3787 that I did have the other day was a different one. Can't remember now. The one that had the display issues that we couldn't seem to work out, it was a bad display cable. So I don't know exactly, it was just bad luck that they replaced it with a bad one or what, but after I swapped it out, it was all good again. Heck, for all I know, maybe it was just a bad connection. Hey Harperman, how's things going? Getting sick of me sending you customers yet? People with their Androids? People with their Samsung A21s and S20s and things like that? You want me to stop it? No, the battery's not puffed, it just looks that way because aftermarket. It doesn't have the same sort of gloss as the originals. On first glance, I do agree. When I popped this open, I also thought for an instant, hey, that's puffed, but it's not. Well, they keep coming. Alright, we'll keep sending them. I might start sending you some people who say, oh, can you help me transfer all my contacts and data over from my Android to my Apple? I don't mean to be harsh or anything, but I just do not have time for those people. It's like, I'm trying to save data here. I haven't got time for dealing with the fact that you don't know how to use iCloud. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, it's just a case of I've got other things that I need to get done, and people are waiting on me to recover their data. Like I say, I feel bad about it because a lot of the time it is people who are genuinely just looking for help, and it's like if I do that, I'm never going to get my work done. Jimbo, I have watched a reasonable amount of Family Guy. What bit gave you the Stewie vibe? Because I didn't pick that up myself. I know obviously who you're talking about. See, Jim, I found it difficult moving from using the old black PCB tape and pads. Oh, yeah, okay, that stuff, yeah. I always thought it was quite impressive how they could manage to lay out such good curves with that tape. Because any time I tried to lay out curves with that tape, this damn stuff would just ripple up. And then when you put it into the etching tank, of course the etching would slip in underneath the ripples, and you'd end up with this dotty, curved trace. And you'd be like, yep, that's ruined. So you're talking about sending... Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Arnold G. Have quick links with steps to who to contact for assistant transfer. Yeah, I should do that on my Facebook, actually. You're right. I should be like with what Lewis says. If you answer the same thing twice or more, you really should set up a automated response. Hey, Michael Billman. Jim, most of the time I wasn't rich enough for those sort of outline, those trace tape lines. I had to just go at it with the Dallo pen, the old sort of dark blue, interesting smelling ink pen. Go over it a couple of times to make sure it didn't eat through. Try not get high on the solvent that was in it. Hey, Paul F. Ready to take this out yet? Of course, I will say I absolutely always detested ferric chloride. Ferric chloride and I were never friends. Probably never will be. It stains, it stinks, it's expensive. It's just everything I don't like in an etchant. My preferred etchants are things like either hydrochloric acid and peroxide. I like that one because you can always regenerate it. Or sodium perphosphate, or is it sodium persulfate? Yeah, yeah, but I think it's sodium perphosphate or sodium persulfate or potassium persulfate, something like that. They're not as fast acting as the ferric chloride, but for a starter you can actually see what's going on when you're looking in the tank. The downside, of course, is you do have to heat them up to get some sort of effect, but up here in the tropics it's not a big problem. No, not copper sulfate. It'd be sodium persulfate, I'm pretty sure, is one of them. There's two of them out there. Sodium persulfate, and there is another one that's similar sounding, but slightly better in terms of environmental impact and toxicity and impact. But the hydrochloric acid and the peroxide was an interesting one, because you could really crank the temperature up on that to the point where you could almost dip the board in, swish it around a few seconds and pull it out. I don't personally recommend doing that, by the way, but it is doable. I'm wondering maybe if the keyboard's botched on this. The fact that it shuts down a little bit after boot, it might be that the keyboard has got liquid in the on-off line. Ammonium persulfate. Thank you, IM6 Skills. That was the other one, yes. Or at least I'm 99% sure. Sure sounds right to me. I am hoping this is a board issue, though. Yeah, be nice. Fix up the board, put it back together, and away we go. But the lack of a distinct... Okay, that's not corrosion, that's just a bit of plastic. Ion transfer, yes, I actually was quite involved in that. Look, obviously it was independent of other people, but I think it was a case of many people came up with the same idea at the same time, I think. There was several articles that I wrote about doing ion-on transfers, the best sort of substrate to use, the best toners to use, that sort of stuff. And I had that on my model aircraft website. And I think the first couple of speed controllers for brushed motors that I built were actually on home etched circuit boards. Looking back now, I'm like, oh dear God, I can't believe I actually charged people for that stuff. But they worked, and they were solid speed controllers, sort of really good low ohms. on the MOSFETs, so you didn't burn up too much. Decent high frequency switching rate, so you didn't have the choppiness. Yeah, this is annoying me. Hey Sonia. But yeah, getting the laser toner transfer right was a bit of an art in itself. And I even made my first stencils using foil and etchant. Though I will say that wasn't quite as successful as the actual PCB transfer. I found what happened usually with the stencils is that they sort of bled out a little bit too much because the metal was effectively too thick. And then I also wrote a program that would allow you to actually cut out stencils using mylar, like just poly whatever plastic, and a vinyl cutter, like for stickers. And so I wrote a program that will allow you to export your pads from a board for the parts and then have them cut by the vinyl cutter. But it had to be done in such a way that you can't, with the plastic that you use for the stencils, it's too hard and thick to get through like in one pass. So I had to write it so that it would actually repeat the cut, keep going around 4 or 5 times and then move to the next pad. I've got a couple of videos. They're probably my first YouTube videos is of the stencil cutter in action, assuming it's still there. Okay, I really can't find anything on this at this point. So what I'll do is I'll boot this up without anything connected and see if it survives. If you, I'm pretty sure my stuff's still out there. If you, HPGL Distiller, I'm pretty sure was the one I wrote. And you would export, what was it? I can't remember the process anymore. I'd have to look at my own website to find out what the process was. Oh dear. Alright, battery off, memory, back to 18 volts. Mike, I am initially self-taught. I think I started when I was about 9 or 10 years old. That was with the old Z80 systems. And then I did do programming theory as part of my degree at university, or my degrees. So it's a case of, yes, I started out being self-taught, then I went along and got a, what do you call it? Brain's not working very well at the moment. Let's say a proper education on things like algorithms, complexity, the math, just the theories behind the programming. And then after that, I went back into, well, actually all the time I was still doing practical programming. So practical programming I've been doing since, well, that'd be 40 years now. And then professionally I've been programming for 30 years. And of course, yeah, like I said, I had 4.5 odd years at university with various aspects of learning how to program. Because, practical programming is very good, you learn a lot, but you tend to learn only what you are forced to learn in terms of you encounter a situation, you solve it. Unfortunately, that does tend to lead to people using things like bubble sorts and whatever's easiest at the time. Whereas going through the university way, you get an insight into the other alternatives and how to go about that as well. just curious, Paul, what time do you open in the morning? Because you start. I don't open up in the morning at all, ever. I open up at midday. Helps if I turn that power on, eh? I do love my C. It's interesting. It's not drawing any current. Well, that's a good thing. I like that. I like that it's not drawing current. Oh yeah, goody. That's actually a good thing. Let's see. Like most people, I started off with the basic because that's all that was available on the particular machines. I then switched to assembly for the Z80, and after that, I moved on to the PCs, and that sort of put me back onto basic, GW basic, and then switched over to QBasic, I think it was, which was allowed you to compile basic programs into EXEs. That was a revelation. From there, it was more assembly in DOS, and then switched over to Ball and Pascal, or Turbo Pascal initially, which became Ball and Pascal. And finally, I then migrated over to C, and after C, C is still my primary language. I do, of course, still do things like PHP, Bash program, not that you could really call Bash program, shell programming, whatever tends to be required. I do assembly for the microcontrollers if it's required, otherwise they're mostly all done in C as well. Ball and Pascal was fantastic. Ball and Pascal with Turbo Vision, which was the text console interface, was beautiful. I produced a lot of commercial programs with that. It was a fantastic, easy to use, stable system, and there was a lot of really nice sort of setups you could create. And then Delphi came along, and yeah, Delphi was good. It had that rapid application development system, but I feel like it did lose some of the apparent professionalism. Not that I'm one to talk. Delphi always felt like a bit like Duplo Lego to me. Hey, Bert's Computer Repairs. Hello, someone from... I can't work out if that's Japanese or... it's not Korean. I'm going to guess Japanese. Hey, Warren Stamps. Yeah, I didn't actually get involved in the 6502 or 6800 series or 68,000 series. The only time I did encounter them was when we were in one class at university, which was a embedded systems development, and we used the 68HC11s as microcontrollers or embedded systems. But I didn't really take to it then. I didn't get much into microcontrollers until I encountered the Atmel series, the Atmel AT Tinies and Megas, which I know is a huge time gap. There was always the PIC controllers, but I never warmed to them either. But when I found the Atmel AVRs, it was a perfect match for me. JavaScript is now the new C. Oh, that's so wrong. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind JavaScript, I find it very useful, but I would not like to code in large applications. But yeah, I guess people do. ADC 51, no, and I didn't, basically for me it was just simply x86 ASM for doing small sections of code. But then when you move over to a Unix platform, that sort of goes out the window, and you just stick with doing everything in C. Save yourself the nightmare of cross-compatibility. And it wasn't until the Atmel AVRs that I got back into the ASM. Alright, anyway, enough chatting about me. We've got to find out why we are not drawing power and we're not... let's double check that again. Come on, squishy, 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 squishy. No, nothing. Alright. Looks like we're going to have to go board view and find out where the 3V42 is on this, which should be just over here somewhere. Yep, just there. Voltage. Should I press the wrong keys? Mike Sims, yes, I am not a Python fan. I have tried Python and I know it's a nitpick and I know I shouldn't say this, but the lack of, or I should say, the fact that they have active white space completely messes with me. And the reason why I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite saying that is because I actually quite like Fortran, which of course has active white space, or at least Fortran 77 did, as in you had to put everything in the right columns. But for some reason, Python, I feel like I should like it, but I find it, for some strange reason, very offensive. Okay, we don't have 342. Okay, I think I can see a burnt resistor here. What the hell is going on here? Pearl was another one. Yeah, Pearl was all the rage, like late 90s. And I tried so hard and I couldn't get into it. And yet it's not that dissimilar. What is going on here? I've got a fault somewhere that is really dumb somewhere, I'm sure of it. Okay. It's like one of my connectors here for the power input was... I think I've got a problem with the cables, not with the board. Yeah. But they feel secure. I suppose the only obscure, and I use this term lightly, the only obscure language I put time into was Lua. But again, there was something that offended me with Lua, and that was the fact that they use a one index system rather than a zero index for their arrays. Yeah, we've got a problem in here somewhere. I think I just need to make direct connections. I'm just going to try an alternate route for getting this cable connected. And that alternate route is directly into the power supply. The banana plugs are a problem on this. They're not... They're a little bit off standard. Ainsley, about what sort of year or era was that? I mean, I can understand some people, particularly being Fortran 77, if that's what you're learning, would think it's useless. But it's very hard. Fortran 77 has tremendous computing power and speed if you're using it for computing. Certainly more than C does. It may be antiquated, but it's powerful. Alright, so this board seems to be staying aloft. And they lure you in and then debase you. I was a big MySQL person in the mid-90s, and then I found PostgreSQL, and I've never turned back from that. I found Postgres was far more my calling. Ainsley, I think the big thing, if you want to get into programming, you have to really have a reason. It was 1995. Okay, yeah, that makes sense, yeah. You really need to have something that's truly driving you to do programming. Programming just for the sake of programming, you'll flunk out. Or yeah, unless you're one of those rare people that has the capacity to be able to do things for the sake of doing things, as opposed to some sort of intent purpose, like I want to be able to write a program that can help me do better repairs or things like that. But if you're just writing a program to write a program, you'll just drift aimlessly through it and forget most of what you're doing. Mike, I think the thing is, back when it was the big Postgres versus MySQL wars, MySQL had the performance edge, particularly when it came to web type queries. It was good for that sort of thing because it had a very fast read performance compared to, at that time, Postgres. Postgres was more about being technically correct, making sure that the transactions were stable or reversible, all that sort of thing first before it worried about performance. But these days, I think it's ended up that Postgres sort of took the right path because they were able to bolt on performance improvements, whereas MySQL, effectively, by the way that they achieved their performance gains, in order for them to improve the what's the testing? Not salt testing, acid test. In order for them to pass the acid test, they basically have to break a lot of the code, from my understanding, which means they also lose all those performance gains they have. So it was fit for purpose, but as people used it more for things outside of that purpose, they ran into these issues. MySQL horizontal scaling is still easier. Well, there, I see it. So it's still good for that. For me, almost everything I do with the web is done in SQLite. I've never encountered a situation yet where I need to move to something more robust than SQLite. I may have to with open board data, but for now, SQLite's holding up perfectly fine. It's surprising just how fast that sort of engine, the SQLite engine, can be in most cases. You don't really have to use a RDVMS. There are pretenders among us. Of course there are. There is always pretenders among us. Switch from MySQL to MariaDB. I haven't tried MariaDB. I haven't even looked at it. Okay, this is staying on, so I'm going to say it's actually a keyboard fault with the machine, or at least most likely. So a lot of waffling to get back to this point, which is kind of sad. MySQL suffers from the fact that Oracle now drives the development from their... oh, right, okay, yeah. I was upset about the loss of Sun. Sun was one of those companies that they were big, but they were an engineering company at heart for the most part. I mean, towards the end they did start to lose their way. And I think when they started losing their way and when it looked like the inevitable was coming, the engineers started to do things to at least get some of the good bits out and about to everyone else. Solaris was an interesting system. I think the ZFS and dtrace were the two biggest notable exports that still live on today. Yeah, Oracle ruined Sun straight up. There's no denying it. I think for Oracle it was more a case of destroying Sun than it was a case of acquiring Sun for anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Spark chip was starting to run into some of its own issues in terms of trying to gain more performance, which was why I was very happy that they took on the AMD Opterons for a lot of their server lineup. I do still miss my, I think it was the 248 dual V20Z 1U server. Loud as hell, but very nice machine. I did a lot of development on that. Okay, I was just checking to see whether the daughter board could be influencing things, but that's not at fault. Not today. But yeah, so far as I can understand, Oracle predominantly just acquired Sun in order to shut them down, and that was basically it. Sun always had the best looking server hardware as well, in my opinion. Not that you really care too much, because you don't look at it all day, but when you did walk into the server room, it was always nice to go up to a nice fat 42U rack full of very sexy looking server hardware. Okay, what's this? Applex itself looks okay. Alright, so let's drop this back in. We don't need that. And see what happens. So I'm going to guess that at this point it is just junk in the keyboard, and we're going to have to do a keyboard replacement, which is not something I'm going to be doing tonight because it's already 12:30. And I probably don't actually have a spare keyboard on hand for once. I mean, slack. Didn't order more. Okay, trackpad, leave that alone. Speaker we'll just plug in so that it holds the board when I flip it up. Yeah, that should do it. Let's see. Testing that. They lost their spark. There's the feature in the Spark processor that made it such a dominant processor in like the 90s. What was it, the sliding window register set? I can't quite remember exactly what they called it. It was it was an excellent performance gain for them, but it was also going to become the hindrance later on. Okay, is this not bonged or anything? 1.7 amps, this has got to be doing something. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, it just, because I didn't have the keyboard access, I couldn't pull up the thing. Yeah, I can't exactly remember what the feature was that in the Spark processor that made it so dominant. It was something to do with a sliding register window, as far as I recall. It didn't run Windows. That didn't matter too much. Well, you remember the crud, I can remember, Alpha chips? They were always good. Again, end of the road for them. Oh, definitely bonged. Okay, so it's just my my deafness playing up. That's great. That's nice. This is running very, 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 very slow. It being 3787, it might not be liking the lack of battery. That's abnormally slow. The Deck Alpha was a really nice math type. Yeah, if you really wanted to crunch numbers, it was great. But unfortunately, from a consumer side of things, it was extremely expensive. There were some barely financially accessible ones for general consumers, but it was just a case of too late. And then, in a way, you can probably blame AMD, because once AMD bought out the x86-64 instruction extension, it essentially killed off all the existing low and 64-bit systems that weren't x86. And I mean, yeah, it killed Titanium, but then again, to be fair, Intel's Titanium killed itself like the Titanic that it almost gets confused with in terms of name. It sunk itself. It was an interesting theoretical project, and it just did not work out. Ah, damn it. I forgot to plug the battery in. The problem with the Titanium, fundamentally, at least Titanium 1, was that they created this very fast processor, so to speak, but they had hoped that compilers would manage to catch up and to be able to keep those pipelines full. Okay, now I heard the bong. But it just never happened. So it basically destroyed the titanium. And then of course once we were able to just simply use our existing x86 code, but in a 64-bit realm with the AMD 64-bit extensions, it was the end of it. Was the sliding register window for context changes? I really cannot recall well enough. I'm going to have to go and dig it up again, because it was an interesting technical overview as to why the various processors excelled in certain areas of use. Alright, so this is obviously not rebooting yet. I just realised I'm not going to be able to shut it down. Fans are going absolutely bonkers, which makes me wonder about the SMC. Mike, funnily enough, now you're making me bring up Java. Like Java, I was interested in Java originally because it's supposed to be this holy grail where you could write it once, it produces the bytecode, and you just move your bytecode to wherever you got to go, and it can then converts it if you need to platform native or just run it in the JVM. But that failed so hard in the important formative years, I just couldn't take to it anymore. And in the end, it was just easier to just keep writing in C or C++, and the compilers and libraries will be cross-ported. And so it was ended up being less drama. So this is why it's complaining. Ended up being less drama to just stick with C and C++, and of course we had GCC or eggs or Clang now. It sort of removed the whole cross-platform issue for the most part. Java is extremely popular, but good night, Hubman. I'm not denying Java's popular, but I think half of that could be because of the extensive level of education campaigns that were done and the number of schools and universities that used it as their teaching language. And so whatever you tend to learn like that becomes what you use throughout your career, or at least initially. And of course IBM was big behind it, and Sun. But I think overall, in terms of what the original vision was, it kind of fell well short of that. I'm going to have to disconnect. I can't shut this down because I don't have a keyboard. Okay, trackpad, keyboard. I know this is a very long-winded way of going around and finally testing to see whether the keyboard and trackpad are at fault. That's what you do. It's going to be really annoying if this thing doesn't fail on me. I'm kind of getting sick of these machines that turn up and work. The other thing is, it could actually just be a failing solid state drive, given that this is the same size. Oh god, it's a 512. Yeah, okay, this is probably failing. Oh, nope, shut down. Okay, it's the keyboard. But now that I've just noticed that this is a 512 Samsung, I will have to notify the person to make sure they do back up their data. These 512 gig ones die left, right and center. I've got a pile of them All dead. All controller failures. It's a charger. No, it's the keyboard. Well, we don't know if it's the keyboard or if it's the trackpad. Mike, with C++, I think the biggest disservice of C++ to itself is just how extensive it is. I know it sounds stupid, but 90% of the C++ standard you just do not ever use. Most of us, I shouldn't say most of us, people like myself, we essentially still write in C, but we take the good parts of C++, such as templates and vectors, things like that, and we include them in, as well as better compiler intelligence in general. So we're still mostly writing in C. We compile as if it was C++. We get the advantages. We also get the tools and the features that were... strings is another one. As much as I resisted using strings initially, I have come to appreciate them. Okay, something wonky's just gone on there. This thing's not even 17 million. What is going on? Yeah, some bits from the standard template library. That's exactly it, yeah. And I think that's really where a lot of people... I'm having trouble speaking now, I apologize. Keyboard is definitely holding that sucker down. That's where a lot of people were hoping C++ would be when they were coming away from C, or looking at C++ as an alternative or upgrade from C. Don't get me wrong, don't get mistaken, C and C++ are technically distinct languages, but they have this amazing crossover thanks to the compilers. And so, accidentally perhaps, we've ended up with the ideal language option, which is nested in between. Does your iMac have a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse that you could use temporarily? No, but I can just put a USB... what do you call it? USB hub on this one and just use my wireless ones. Too lazy to use C++. So. And there's been plenty of attempts to make a sort of better C++, like there's the language D, but again, it just never gains the support. Well, it looks like it's definitely the keyboard, because I've got the trackpad plugged in. We'll see how we go. Have a hard time using char arrays when you know strings. Mr. Rossman, good evening to you, or good morning to you rather, sir. Boring event tonight. We just got a bad keyboard. We've got beer-stained keyboard. Yeah. Job code scan. My bad. There we go. Coming in. There you go. Using C Rust combo for the past... So someone's going seriously somewhere. Okay, I've heard about Rust and I've heard it's C-ish or C++-ish, but I haven't actually investigated it much myself. Alright, so we've just got a keyboard failure, that's all. Nothing interesting. Maybe, Lewis, since you're here, I actually can use your brains for a second. I have got a 820-00840. It is running very slow. It is not the sensor chip, the temperature chip. It is not the SMC. What else is it? I've done all the usual things, and it still runs like a... It runs terribly, that's all I can say. Let's see. Damn it, where is it? Here we go. Even the board number is terrible, because the board number is 666. So it's probably a bad sign. Anyway, I'll strip the keyboard out of that one tomorrow. And warn them about their 512 gigabyte drive. Yeah, so I don't know. Do we get PCH failures on these ones that cause it to go slow? Your management app. Oh, Lewis, you're a disappointment. I'm sorry I ever met you on chat. You did warn us, don't meet your heroes. You tried to tell me and I just kept asking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm never going to come to New York now. I didn't ban you, Bert. I just haven't responded. Alright, so the only thing I haven't replaced on this is the ISL. But the problem is I don't like changing chips unless I know why I'm trying to change it. I've tried this in a different chassis. It's exactly the same. Let's see. So yeah, I could do the ISL, but like I said, I really don't like doing chip replacements, just simply shooting from the hip. Anyway, Lewis, hurry up and get that transfer done, otherwise I'm going to get cranky. I've got stuff to buy, my man. No, I shouldn't be saying that. Okay, it's got a chip in it, so maybe there's a chance there. The chip has a chip. What did you say about Thunderbolt area? Well, I mean, we could take it off, but the thing is, I don't have any problem with delivery of power or anything like that. The protocols all come out right. As you can see, I've replaced that. SMC's been replaced. I've checked the diode mode on the I2C lines. And the only reason why I worry about it perhaps being the PCH is because that sensor, the SMC and everything, share a common, they share that I2C line. It can't hurt for me to swap this anyway, since it's a dead end job one way or another. Interesting though that I only just noticed that chip in it. Is it SPI or I2C? Oh, it's pretty sure it's I2C because there's no... Yeah, because you've got clock and data and that's it. Okay, that I think has been replaced before because that came off way too easy. Oh, I've also changed the current sense resistors, so it's like I'm running out of chips to replace. Can't believe Lewis ditched me like that. I'm hurt. He comes in here. Yeah, it's like one of those hot women in a nightclub that come up to you, start talking to you, start flirting with you, and you think, oh my god, you know, this is really happening. And then you find out they're just trying to either score a drink from you or they're just trying to avoid being hit on by some uglier person. So you're nothing but convenient fodder for them at the time. Okay, that needs to be reballed, and that's not a problem. I'm kind of upset I didn't show the iPhone XR repair last night, but it was quite nerve-wracking to be honest. I've got to be salty. Lewis doesn't... You don't get respect if you be nice. It's that simple. Kind of reflects back on the title of the video tonight. Now obviously this is a pulled chip from another board. What usually happens is I will do a chip swap to see if that is actually the fault, and if it's not faulty, then I'll put it into my little bag of reclaimed ISLs, because these suckers are too expensive still. Lewis is very overwhelmed simply by the fact that he's doing everything he can to keep pushing right to repair, and he's doing his best to help out people like myself to get projects out there that will allow us to secure our ability to continue to repair devices. So yeah, the guy is doing a lot. I mean, you know, I know I can get a bit harsh about him at times, but I can understand why he doesn't do repairs anymore. I know there's multiple reasons for that, but yeah, he's working his backside off. I know that for a fact. Last time I checked, when he was in the bathroom, he had no backside at all. Just kidding, just kidding. And he's investing a lot of money into our industry. And he doesn't ask much back, he just simply is giving it a shot. So yeah. Bob, with regards to not dropping down prices on the M1, yeah, I think you might not need to give it another year or two. I am seeing a softening of the prices on things like 1466s, so it is starting to happen. It just maybe not as aggressively as we feared, but it is starting to happen. I used to be able to get locally, no trouble, $450, $500 for a 1466 that was done up nicely. Now it's a lot harder, even the 2017 version. Chip shortage as well, there's that. Let's see. I'm trying to find my spudger. Damn it. I had my ice cream container spudger last night, and now my messy desk has once again conspired to make things difficult. So Lewis is what? Lewis is one of the rare people who seem to have infinite energy. Wish I had a tenth of his energy. Certainly he does have a lot of energy. It helps too that he's younger. He probably looks after his health a lot better than the rest of us. And I think a lot of that energy also comes from if you are inspired by what you're doing. You know, if you feel like you're doing something that matters, you're achieving things, that helps. I mean, you know yourself, if you have a bad day at the job, you know, you get a bunch of dud jobs or something like that, you feel extremely sapped. But if you have a good run, then you're like, yeah, I can take on more jobs. This is great. And I think also you got to realize there's the public presentation, and then there's the reality behind that. I suspect he probably does get quite tired and he's quite sick of a lot of things, but he does persevere and puts on a good face. Wow, I created way too much solder paste for that one. That'll last me a dozen of those. Yeah, not being able to get an ISL 9240, that's not fun. Okay. Kind of surprised Chris Long hasn't dropped in. Oh, you mongrel. Alright, hopefully I haven't messed this up, but I jumped on the stencil a bit too aggressively and it popped up, but I think I got lucky. I didn't give the rest of the stencil a chance to warm up. I just kept attacking the center of the stencil, and of course naturally metal expands when heated in 99% of cases. There's always going to be something that doesn't follow that, but yeah, naturally of course it's got to go somewhere, and that's why it pops. Oh, what did I just see there? Bob Wareham. I'm working on converting newer Retina displays to work with the 1502s. Okay, how are you going about that? As in, are you thinking of... Yeah, I'm genuinely curious as to how you're going about that. Sounds like an interesting project. See, I just don't have time to do interesting projects like that anymore. I mean, you want to get out there and go, hey, you know, look, this is a problem for a few people. Let's try and solve this and allow people to be able to use a different display instead of no longer being able to fix up their old machines. But that's a lot of investment in time, money, and you just got to pick your battles and go, look, you know, I don't have the time for that one. I'm going to have to let that one go. But I'm glad to see someone out there is doing something like that. Well, I'm still working hard on flex... What the... weird, spooky stuff going on around here. I'm generally always working hard on flexboard view or something like that. But even that, I've sort of gotten a little tired the last couple of weeks. Almost there, just got to push through. Oh, for goodness sake, come on. Yeah, the aircon ghost is back. If I'm lucky, it's a ghost. Don't put too much flux down on that one. Alright, so bottom right for that pin. Looks like I need to do some more readings of open board data onto this board. I don't have enough there. I should have all of these pins set up in the data. I'm not going to tap that, I'm just going to assume it's gone into place. What's your progress of the OV data features? Well, we're mostly there. We're now more at a case of populating the data. So if we go to schematics, so pull up the popular one, like the 165. All the green dots represent data that's been put in. We also are doing things like multiple conditions, so like if the backlight driver, you take that off and do some measurements on that. And then even things like, okay, you've got a different main board and that'll let you to pick up specific values based on the different main boards, because obviously in this case, okay, there's not a lot of variation being shown there, but there are scenarios where a different processor set or something like that can result in notably different values to be read. And all those green dots are just optional. It's just simply for me to be able to see where I need to get more data from if I have to. So yeah, it's working well. And I will be sending out capture kits for people. That is, it'll be a copy of FlexBoard View, it'll be a multimeter, it'll be the capture keyboard switch that you can use. Yeah, so this is the multimeter I'll be sending out, one of many. And then we'll have a little keyboard capture thumb switch, so that what you'll do is, say you're doing diode mode or voltage mode, you'll have one probe tied to ground, and the other free probe you use to measure the values, and the other hand you use to enter or back and forth, things like that. Waiting for the circuit boards to arrive for that. Hopefully not too much longer. They are about 400 kilometers from here. And I'm waiting for more Atmel AT20 45 chips to arrive. I've got 25s, but I don't have 45s. And unfortunately, I definitely need the 45s because the USB protocol stack takes up about 2K of space. And then I still need more space than that in order to be able to handle the oscillator tuning part of the program, so I don't have to use a crystal. I really hope this works. Hey Vogon. Hugo, I was thinking of using the foot pedals, but I've kind of want to try, I'm going to see how the thumb switch technique works. I use the foot pedals and I'm happy with the ones that I've got, and that's fine if you're doing just stomping the single entry in, but if you need to do a go back or jump forward, I find it very difficult with the feet, because you've got to sort of like pivot your foot around a little more unnaturally than what you would like. So that's why I'm going to try with the thumb switch, because at least it's pretty easy to like go that way or that way and then center for enter or something like that. It's all the experimental phase at the moment, but I do have or will be getting the money for sending out the meters, the FlexBoard View licenses, the cable sets. When I say cable sets, I mean for the meter, because the leads that come with them are just junk. But that's standard for all multimeters. I don't think there's too many meter brands that come with leads that aren't junk. It's almost like part of the running joke, I guess. I'll show you the lead sets that I'm going to be sending. Yeah. That's these ones. Is a Hirschman, so yeah, it's a good quality brand. American, not American, what am I saying? German. At least I'm pretty sure they're German. You've seen me with these before. I use them. Okay, there we go. So you got two very jabby jab pro tips. You got these very good alligator clips. I do very much like these because of the way they got the flat plate at the front and the serrateds on the side. It makes it a lot easier to grab onto things. High flex, high silicon with what do you call it? Piggyback options. And then of course you don't really use these as much as you'd think, but you know, the grabby claw type thing. You'd think you'd use it on the board, hooking on those ground holes, but you really don't. So they will probably sit idle in most cases. But it's a good quality cable set, a lead set. Some people might prefer their own, but that's what I'll be sending out. Well, these actually say made in Germany, so what is it? I don't know what the actual model. Hirschman PMS4. Yeah, made in Germany. Yeah, Sonia, that's probably certainly a more applicable area where you maybe got a lead coming off the front panel or something like that, and you just want to hook in on where it terminates onto the connector. OSIS, I'm sending them out for open board data capture. So if you want to be part of the open board data capture program, if you have known working boards, some MacBooks or iPhones or things like that, and you're willing to put the time in to contribute a couple of boards of worth of data, or even just, you know, one good board worth of data, then send me an email and we'll see what we can do about sending you a kit. Okay, that's plugged in. I'll know pretty quickly if this is going to be an improvement or not. I really hope it is, because someone's banging on my back door about this job, and I don't blame them. I just haven't been able to do anything about it because I just can't find the fault. Sonia, do you have one or two? Or even one? Yeah, no, this feels like it's much the same as it was before. But if you got one or two or one, then you know, which one have you got, or do you know? So, and it doesn't matter if there's already existing data, because we actually do need. It'd be ideal to have a couple of layers of data. Like, instead of just one set of numbers for each board, it's nice to have up to 5 set of numbers for each board, and then we can average them and stuff like that. Because there's always going to be variances between the builds, between the test equipment, even just the temperature that they were done in. Mr. Daniels, you did not plug that keyboard in properly. You did not. Ach, niemand. Back. Oh, Sonia, that's plenty. There. Okay, that keyboard not plugged in properly, yeah? Yeah, certainly wasn't. God damn these. I really do not like the way they've done these flexes. The only upside is that that keyboard flex is replaceable. And now the battery flex just fell off. Now these will often run slower without that battery connected, but not as slow as what this machine has been running. Let's try that again. Ah, crikey, I've just gone over the 2-hour mark on the stream. Oh, Miles, come on. I've still got to answer your email too. Ah, it's so bad. ENTC, yep, that's also a contributing factor, but again, it's yeah, there's a certain speed that I anticipate typically with these boards based on them being stripped out and having no battery, no SSD, you're just a bare board. And the performance that I've been experiencing is subpar of that, so it's starting to stutter again. We'll see. I'm really hoping it was that. Oh, it might have been the ISL. It does not come back up that quickly usually. Let's run the Valley. Yeah, this is running. This is fixed. I'm pretty sure this is fixed. I would not have picked the ISL for the fault, especially because of the fact that it was actually charging. You know, I had no problems about the PP bus. I had no problems with the charging or anything. Oh, wait, no, yep. If it does more than 2 frames per second, we're good. Is Open Board View Mac specific? Glenn, Open Board View and Flex Board View are generic board view viewers. They are not specific to MacBooks or iPhones. You can have any brand of product. If a board view exists for it that has a format that is supported by Flex Board View or Open Board View, yeah, this is fixed. Thank. Yeah. Oh man. If I wasn't able to fix this, I don't know who would have blixemed to, but someone would have got blixemed around here. Yeah, oh, thank God for that. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so it works for any board view. Let's see if I can find. Let's see, schematics. I don't know if I've got. Let me just see if I can fire up my secure shell file system. Cat. Oh, not car. What is this? Lisp? Sheesh. Nada. History. Grep. Ah, that's why. I forgot that I rebuilt this machine entirely, so all the existing utilities I have been gone. OB data is also not a Apple specific, it's for any boards that you want to add. The only trouble I have right now is the process of actually adding a new board. So if you want to add data for a new board, I have to find out how to be able to somewhat semi-automatically permit that. I've got to try and put in throttle controls for most of the surfaces you would want, so that people don't just come along and thrash the living daylights out of them. Mount point is not empty. Oh no, you'll see my password. Okay, let's share. Beautiful. And everyone sees all my Windows stuff. Okay, share. Boards. Actually, I'll take a tech. Boards. So what we've got here, an ASUS. Okay, Alright, so as you can see, yeah, we've got an ASUS mainboard here. And again, you could take one of those and put open board data onto that stuff too, so that other people can make use of it. Andrew, your cat is back. Where did your cat go? Let's see. Oh, I remember working on this damned thing there. So yeah, anyway, as I say, it's not MacBook, Apple, it's generic. It's whatever you have the data available for. It just happens to be, though, that because of the involvement with MacBook repairs through Lewis Rossman and everything like that, it's become more of the, how can you say, MacBooks and iPhones have become more of the, I can't think of the word I want to use here. I want to say flagship, but it's not. But the banner under which people presume these software programs, Open Board View and Flex Board View, are meant for, but it's actually for generic. What is the recommended PCB reverse engineering software? I would just, I've mentioned this before, just simply use KiCad, EagleCAD, any sort of EDA CAD program and build it up from there. You don't have to do any of the trace routing or anything like that. You can just simply just have the logical representation. As long as you put the parts in the right place, then the board view that you can generate from that will work in Flex Board View and Open Board View. Anyway, this is working. No thanks to Lewis. Shame, he had his opportunity. I gave him his opportunity there to come across as an absolute genius, but he gave it away. I'm very glad that the ISL fixed that, because I was really losing my mind. And now I can actually report back to the business that this is for, that it's actually repaired. But now, of course, it means I've got to wash the board again. Ugh, yeah. But it's good to know now that if you do have slowness on that and it doesn't end up being the sensors and it's not the SMC, then it might be the ISL. Bit of extra experience there for me. Particularly, like I said, because I thought that, well, it would register the battery, it would charge the battery, all the functions were there, and the PB bus was correct, all that sort of stuff. So it didn't really lead itself to make you think that the ISL was at fault. The only thing that slightly led me towards that is because the original condition that this board came in for is it had a hard short because of a broken cap on PB bus. And that's the only reason that I was giving it a moment of thought that maybe it was the ISL. I thought maybe, just maybe, because of that short, the ISL got upset. But I felt like I was really drawing a long bow on that. Chip test pins on bad ISL resistance versus data sheet. Oh, you can't really do it with this one, but the other ISLs you can, the earlier ones. Yeah. Alright. Okay, I am done for tonight. I feel like I've achieved something. I'm happy. Sadly, I'm not going to get paid for this one because this has actually come back as a warranty job, because I repaired it for the PB bus and it was actually running, from what I remember, okay when I sent it off. But then the customer said, a few days later it was running absolutely dreadful, so I sent it back, and so it's good to actually have finally solved that. So, alright, I'm out here. Thank you all for watching. I much appreciate it. It's good to have an audience as I talk to myself. and I will maybe see you tomorrow. Depends what we get in. I don't think I'll be doing that 1398 keyboard replacement on screen or on stream. I think I'll just save that for a typical drudgery job during the day. Catch us all later. You'll take care. Thank you very much again. See you later.